Hello, welcome back to isayhourwrong, and this is my November wrap-up. So, sorry for missing a video last week. I was absolutely swamped with uni work and decided to just put it off for a week and just come back with my wrap-up this month. So, speaking of which, I didn't read too many books. I read quite a few actually, but not as many as usual, mainly because I was just again swamped with uni work and just stressed out to high heaven. Though my semester's nearly over now, I've only got one exam and I should be nearly done. So let's get into it. So, like last month, I read two Morganville books, the sixth one and the seventh one, which are Carpe Corpus and Fade Out by Caine. I will be talking about these in another video that's coming up after I finished all 15, which is going to be a wee while if I only do it at this rate. But those are coming, so I'm not going to talk about them in this one, but that's just letting me know that I did read those two as well. And then I thought I would try and get through some of my TBR because I've just been mainly rereading books instead of actually reading the books that I bought, which aren't good. So first up, I read Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. Now, I absolutely love the music from My Fair Lady. I listened to the Julie Andrews version, the movie version with Audrey Hepburn, and the new version that's been released on Broadway recently, or was it off Broadway? Anyway, I can't remember. Anyway, I love My Fair Lady and decided that I would give this a read to see how much it had changed, like what was the differences between it. And actually it's very, very close. There's only a couple of main differences between the musical and the play. And it's a very, very fun read. Like, I gave this one 5 stars. So basically what the book is about is a young girl who is working as like a flower seller on the street, kind of comes across this man who kind of mocks her for the way that she speaks and says she'll never get anywhere in life because she isn't speaking properly. And so she decides to walk up to his house and demand that he teach her proper English. So him and his friend that he's staying with decide to make a bet that if they can manage to pass her off for a lady after a certain amount of time, then they win, that sort of thing. So it's basically just the course of her learning how to speak and then kind of that sort of thing. And it's a brilliant piece on kind of modern, and it's just really, really good, and it's a good kind of insight into Edwardian life at the time. It is based on the myth of Pygmalion from Greek myths about the statue and all that kind of thing. So it does have a lot of like basis in Greek mythology, but also it was written in 2 versions, one from 1916 and then it's also got a 1941 version which was added later by George Bernard Shaw because people kept misunderstanding the ending, so he decided to rewrite it so that it kind of made it, because Eliza and Higgins, which are the two main characters, how everybody kind of perceived them as kind of falling in love, but that wasn't really what was going on there, and people were missing the point. So he basically wrote a bunch of footnotes and revised the ending so that he would hit people over the head and go, no, that's not what it's about. So I really, really enjoyed this one, and I would highly recommend anybody who likes the musical to check out the book, because it's actually a play, so it didn't take too long to read at all, but it's just a really good and interesting kind of way of looking at it. So next up, I got 2 books from the library. They were audiobooks. I got them online through Libby, and they were The Powers of Darkness by Vladimir Asman, and this is, and Bram Stoker. So basically, Powers of Darkness is the Icelandic translation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And you might be thinking, now, why would you translate Bram Stoker's Dracula into Icelandic and then back into English so people can read it? Well, basically what happened is when it was being translated into Icelandic, something happened along the line, and it's basically a completely different story. There's a lot of the same beats, but on the whole, it's very different from the actual novel Dracula. For example, the first section, where Jonathan is in Transylvania is the majority of the book in the Powers of Darkness. It's like almost 5/6 of the book, and the name is a bunch of names are changed. There's a whole section missing. Like it's all been jigged around so that it's like completely different from the original text, and it was only recently translated back into English so that kind of scholars could like figure out where it went wrong. So the Powers of Darkness book that's currently been released on audio, I don't think there's a hard copy of it yet, essentially explains the history behind how it came to be, how it's so different from Dracula, and then kind of gives you the story, full cast audio from the one that I listened to, and I loved it. I thought it was absolutely insane. There was just so many differences, and the differences really kind of stuck out to me, and it was different enough to give it a really interesting twist on the original Dracula book, because I have read that book so many times, so I know exactly what happens in all the bits, and seeing it slightly different but also slightly the same was really interesting. And I would highly recommend, if anybody's a fan of Dracula, to pick up Powers of Darkness, because it is just a good fun ride. I gave it 4 stars, mainly because there was a couple of bits where I was like, strange, that's a bit odd. But on the whole, I found it really good, and I would highly recommend anybody to give it a listen and see what they think. And then, because I was in denial that October was ended and November was here, I decided to keep the spooky season going and listen to another book that I got from Audible Plus catalogue for free, narrated by Gillian Anderson, which was also a plus, by one of my favourite authors, Wilkie Collins. Now, anybody who knows me and who knows that Wilkie Collins, I started reading last year. I started reading it with A Woman in White, and since then I've kind of been obsessed with trying to read every bit of his work, and this was no exception. So the Mrs. Zant and the Ghost is essentially a story about a young woman who's just lost her husband, and she's kind of in mourning, and her husband's brother is trying to take advantage of that and get her to marry him instead, because she's very beautiful and young and whatnot. But there's a ghost that's around there that's completely kind of stopping him from getting too close. And then I would just highly recommend it. If you've got Libby, I think it should be free, and if you've got the Audible Plus catalogue, it also should be on there. So I would highly recommend just checking it out, because it's really short. It's only about an hour and a half long. It's a short story, or a novella, or whatever they call them kind of things, and it's just such a good little supernatural story from Wilkie Collins, and it has a message at the bottom of it, like all Wilkie Collins books does. Don't take advantage of women in mourning. Don't treat mental illness like it's something stupid, because that is not a good way to be. So I would highly recommend that one as well. So, keeping with the spooky season, I found a book in a charity shop called The Deathless Girls by Kiran, Millwood, Hardgrave, and it is essentially about the origin story of the 2 of the 3 brides of Dracula. So in the original book, not in the Powers of Darkness, but in the original, Dracula's got 3 brides, which kind of, I don't know, torment Jonathan a bit. Anyway, this is the origin story of this. I picked it up because it was really quite pretty. It's got nice bears, and decided to give it a read. I found it a bit kind of middling. I didn't hate it, and I didn't love it, mainly because the actual stuff with vampires and stuff like that, and horror and stuff, didn't come till about here in the book, like the last couple of chapters. However, that last couple of chapters were absolutely great. They were really, really good for horror. They were really creepy. They had that kind of unnerving sensation about it, and the same seduction and kind of power that vampire mythology does. But the rest of it was just kind of meh. It was just essentially telling them about how they were slaves and then not slaves, and then they escaped, and telling them about their culture and that kind of thing. And it was interesting. I signed up for vampire stuff, and I didn't get it to the last 3 chapters. So if that's what you're looking for in a book, then I maybe wouldn't recommend this one. But if you're wanting to learn more about kind of a proper origin story, or with the kind of culture and kind of stuff that was going on around there, then this is good. I would give this a go. But yes, so I gave this one 3 stars, and yeah, that's pretty much all I really have to say about that one. And last but not least, I'm a bit disappointed in myself, but I read Orlando by Virginia Woolf. Now, I read a couple of last year, it must have been around the same time, I read To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, and I didn't like it. I felt that I didn't like her writing style. I felt it was too abstract, maybe the right word, or like whimsy for me to kind of grasp onto. And I thought, okay, well, I didn't like her writing style, but I really, really want to read Orlando because I loved the film with Tilda Swinton in it. So I decided to go, and I love the premise as well, like the whole waking up from a man into a woman, and how it's kind of like this kind of gender, like kind of looking into gender and roles and that sort of thing, and dedicated to her lover Vita Saxville West. This was a really interesting thing to look at and learn about. So I decided that because I didn't really like her writing style from To the Lighthouse, I would pick up the audiobook for this one. And man, I wish I could say I liked it. I liked it more than I liked To the Lighthouse. It was definitely better listening to it on audio than it was reading it, because reading it I just wanted to put the book down and never pick it up again. But listening to it on audio, I was quite hooked for some of it. But on the whole, I just don't think it was for me. I don't think Virginia Woolf's writing is for me, and that's fine, because you can't like all the authors in the world. I just was disappointed because I just loved the film so much and really wanted to like the book as well. I just didn't gel with it, and I don't know, that's disappointing. I think I love the film so much because of the costumes, because the costumes in that film is absolutely cracking. I mean, that scene where Tilda Swinton runs down the hedges in that big bog, oh, good shit right there. Anyway, so that was the book that kind of disappointed me the most this month, but hopefully it's just because I just don't like Virginia Woolf's writing all that much, which is a shame, but what can you do? So that's it for the books that I read this month. I don't have anything really more to say about them. So thank you for listening. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about, and leave a comment down below. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.